Good morning, everybody. This session might need a little bit of explanation for some of you, because I realize that in fact we probably have half the audience from the world of academics, and the other half of the audience tend to be people who either make, sell, or support or implement or study 3D technology systems. And I do neither of those. So what I do and have done for many years is help people in the business world get benefit out of implementing enabling technologies. And that's all types of enabling technologies. So really what I want to talk about this morning is not about 3D printing. It's actually about the business world. And I suppose the relevance to this audience is I'm hoping that maybe there's something, a glimmer of some information that you may pick up from my talk that you can share with people that you talk to in the business world that will help them make a success of what you're trying to help them to do. So, as was mentioned, I'm not going to talk about the company that I'm with, which is Modern OneSolve, other than to say that we are a company that works mainly with the design, engineering, and manufacturing industries in South Africa. We have a South African-wide footprint. We have a strong working relationship together with VUT and helping them do a number of the things that they want to do from a design for manufacture and training, and in fact IT support for that. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But my background is actually much broader than that. So, as you can tell by my grey hair, I've been on this planet for a good few years. I've been doing presentations for a good few years. And certainly, one of the prime rules of doing a serious business or business-related type presentation is don't start with a joke, because it normally backfires. So I'm not going to start with a joke. Because in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, this guy is no joke. This guy scares the hell out of me. And I'm not an American, and luckily I'm not being asked to vote for him or not, although I think you've probably guessed whether I would or wouldn't. The relevance of this is that I actually wanted to talk about her. Now, I've been following on the very biased media that, of course, is very anti-Trump and is totally trying to derail the election, and we've been following it around the world. And some of the things that Hillary has said really hit home and sound to me really, really good. We're going to invest $10 billion in American manufacturing and recommit to scientific research that can create entire new industries. This is opposed to Trump's plan, which is don't tax the rich people. They'll have all this extra money, they'll just magically invest it, and then everyone will have jobs again. And that's about as far as I've managed to gather his plan consists of. The next thing that Hillary said that really impressed me, the US is not in competition with Mexico or China for jobs. That the US is in fact in competition with Germany, Japan, and Italy. And what we, the US in her case, need to invest in, amongst other things, advanced manufacturing. And she actually used these words: we need to invest in precision engineering or precision machining and in 3D printing. And we need to be technology leaders again. Now, why that was important to me is because I hear a huge echo of that in South Africa. And the success of the South African economy is very important to me. I'm not a politician, thank goodness. I'm not an economist, I'm not either. But I do want to see South Africa succeed. And I also think that we have a similar situation. So many people tend to think and say that we're in competition with China or Taiwan or Korea or whatever for imported goods. And I'm going to say no, I actually believe that we're in competition with Germany and Japan and Italy as well. We need to invest in advanced manufacturing, in precision engineering, in 3D printing. We need to become technology leaders. And the main reason for all of this is that we need innovative things, products, solutions to export, which is going to be worth much more to us than being concerned about finding alternatives to cheap or volume imports for which we could never compete. But I'm out there in the manufacturing world, I'm seeing people trying to compete in that space and failing, outright failing. They're trying to make nuts and bolts. They can't deliver them out of a factory door in Gauteng at less money than they can be made in China, put on a ship, moved to Durban, moved up to here, and the nuts and bolts will still land cheaper here. I talk to people, and my feeling is that there's two kinds of manufacturers that we have out there. Those that are entrepreneurial and see a challenge and believe that there is a way forward, whereas we have a bunch of other people who've given up. I sat across a table from a managing director of a company the other day who said, "Oh, we'd love this new technology idea, but we make pumps, and we make pumps for the mines. And the mining industry, as we all know, is going through a really tough time, so they're not buying stuff. So we don't have any sales, we don't have any money, therefore we can't buy any technology." This guy's just given up. There was no thought of, should we use our expertise to make pumps for some other marketplace? To make different pumps or different products? They've got a factory, they've got machines, they've got people, and they've got expertise. But no, we're going to sit and wait until the mines recover so we can sell them more pumps. It's just crazy. So my career has really been more than 40 years of working with, literally over that time, hundreds of organizations to underpin businesses with enabling technologies. One of the things that I've done is particularly made a study of why a lot of those implementations fail. And that's what I wanted to touch on this morning. And this is maybe something that would help you in conversations with people that you're talking to. That the study of why they fail leads actually to a very simple recipe for ensuring success. I published that in a small book that's available, and I'm using that in consulting engagements and such like to help companies move forward. So, what do I mean by enabling technology? The definition I like the most, and I'm going to read this one verbatim, comes from businessdictionary.com, and it's equipment and or methodology that alone or in combination with associated technologies provides the means to generate giant leaps in performance and capability. I think that sums it up. There may be people who disagree with that definition, but it tends to work. And besides that, my, once again, personal definition of technology falls into two categories. The first is automation. And a lot of people, actually, when they think technology, they don't tend to think what kind of technology. They just think technology. Now, automation is generally designed to replace human intervention. And yes, it does lead to job displacement or replacement, or even just plain losses. On the other hand, enabling technology is designed to enable and empower humans. It enables people with skills to acquire even greater skills or use those skills to better effect, to achieve more, to do more than they ever could without that technology. And the correct implementation of enabling technologies should lead to competitive advantage in the marketplace for businesses, economic development, and job creation. If you want an example of this, the biggest example that I could think of in the history of the world as an enabling technology was really the invention of the steam engine. First for pumping purposes, later locomotives and railways and such like. That was one of the biggest job creators ever. Look at the whole development of the American continent as one of the big stories. How many jobs were created by it? I'm not saying a lot of them weren't manual jobs, don't get me wrong. These weren't necessarily people who worked with the steam engines or themselves, but that technology just opened up whole new things that people did not imagine were possible before. In our times, well, certainly my generation, it's relevant. A lot of people seem to think this is ancient history now. But the thing that's really driven the digital technology that we've been talking about yesterday and today is the electronic digital computer. There has been some controversy or controversy, depends which shul you went to, over who actually invented the electronic digital computer. It was disputed for many years in court, but in the Honeywell versus Sperry Rand case, it was ruled in 1973 that actually the father of the electronic digital computer was John Atanasov, together with his student Clifford Berry, who invented the first electronic digital computer in the early 1930s. Now, the progress we've had since then in a relatively short time is incredible. The picture on the right, by the way, just I mentioned as a company, our relationship with VUT. One of the things that we've done within VUT's training center, we've implemented a system that we have developed called VCAD, which is the ability, as you all know, that anyone who's worked with CAD and graphics applications are incredibly compute intensive and incredibly graphics intensive. And we have worked and developed a system whereby one central server can supply dozens, and I'm talking up 50, 100 people if necessary, depends on the amount of stuff you put inside the computer, and let people work with thin clients. So we have training center here, for instance, that doesn't have a computer under every desk. It's a central server, and it's doing graphics intensive, engineering intensive calculations, and it actually works very well. And why? Why would you want to do this? And why wouldn't you want to put a computer on every desk? Because the answer is we can do this at about half the price of buying a computer to put on every desk. But that's the kind of progress. One of my second industry that I really worked in my career was the printing industry. When I started in the 70s in South Africa, there were still people using linotype machines, creating type for newspapers or magazines or whatever that produced lead slugs with lead type on, and that were then composed and used to print from actual physical type. We saw the computer enable that to move to an era where people could work with a computer terminal. And the reason I put that picture on the right, that actually dates there from the late 70s, early 80s. That particular typesetting machine on the right was one of the first machines in the printing industry to use microprocessors. And so therefore, that machine has 2 computers inside it. And I mean, this revolutionized the whole concept of printing. Did lots of people lose their jobs? No. I was in that industry, and the answer is no. Did people have to do different jobs? Yeah. There were a couple of old die-hard operators of linotype machines. Some of them were of an age that said, no, I'm too old to learn I'm not going to go and learn how to work one of those machines. And so they went and had to go and do terrible things like go and get a job and retire in Mauritius because they still used the old machines. So, yeah, a few people had a sad ending retiring in Mauritius. But other than that, no, things moved forward. People could do more. In the newspaper industry, the fact that a journalist could change the story right up until the last minute, change things, breaking news. They didn't have to have the newspaper ready 48 hours ahead of when it was going to get printed. It could be ready, in some cases they could be doing the front page half an hour before it was actually going to press. In the business world, I'm not even going to describe that, we all know this. There have been so many enabling technologies that have enabled people to just do stuff quicker and better. The spreadsheet, Excel, as most of us use. Did that displace jobs? Don't believe so. Did it help people do things a lot better and a lot quicker and a lot more accurately? Oh yeah, seriously so. And then back to the world that I've lived in now for the last 30 years, the world of design and engineering. We've seen huge changes where the computer has enabled progress. This picture of the Harlan and Wolff drawing office where the Titanic was designed, I just love that picture. It's actually a picture drawn from the photograph. I have the photograph that goes with it. 100 years later, ships are impressively bigger, incredible engineering, and we have computerized tools that enable us to analyze things, determine if they're going to work, break. We can validate them. We can do precision machining. And, of course, we can do 3D printing and put that all together to do the amazing stuff that you guys are talking about. And as I said, I'm not going to talk about 3D printing. I'm not an expert in 3D printing. But 3D printing is an enabling technology that is going to play an ever-increasing role in importance in certain industries, as it already is. As we already saw yesterday, we were talking about the aircraft industry and others, and in medicine and whatever. So it's very much an enabling technology. So I've used half my time to get to the point of saying what I believe an enabling technology is. But I do think it's important for us to think of 3D printing as an enabling technology. Now, some people, of course, I go and talk to them about business solutions within the engineering, and I'm normally not talking to an audience like this. I'm normally talking to business people, to a board of directors who said, well, wow, why should we invest R1 million in this? Why should we invest a couple of million rand in that? Does this technology really work? The number of times I've heard this statement. Does it really work? Because everyone's heard the horror stories. Oh, yeah. We bought an SAP system. We paid 30 million rand for it. It never worked. Nonsense. Of course SAP works. Might not have worked for them. So my answer normally is, does this technology work? Does it work well? It's the same, to me it's the same answer as, does this camera take good photographs? Well, the answer is, it depends who's behind the camera. It's got nothing to do with the camera. You can buy very inexpensive cameras these days that are capable of taking amazing photographs, if the human behind it knows how to take amazing photographs. It's as bad as the question, does this pencil do good sketches? Don't know. But it's capable of. So, in the business world, the real question is yes, but then will I see a return on investment? And how do I define what is successful? So now let's apply that, and you think in your minds, and when you're talking to people, oh yes, but if I invest in 3D printing, how do I know that this is going to help? How do I measure this? How do I know that it's successful? The strange thing about enabling technology is it's not like owning a physical asset. Sure, I know a 3D printing machine might have an intrinsic value, but it's not where you buy it, right? You don't buy the machine because you know you'll be able to sell it for more in 2 years' time. So unlike something like buying precious metals or property or something, an enabling technology does not have an intrinsic value in and of itself. The value can only be realized if it works for you and it achieves what you set out for it to achieve. So this is where now when I'm in consulting engagements with business people, they say, yes, but what's my return on investment going to be? And they want to know a number. I mean, they're a board of directors. They want to say, I'm going to get an X return on my expenditure of $1 million or 10 million or whatever. And the answer is, sorry, you're actually not going to get that answer. The IT world's been faced with this for the last 20, 30 years. You can implement this new accounting system, whatever. You can't. I'm sorry, people cannot predict the return on investment of that system. All they know is they have a problem. They need to solve that problem. And hopefully this technology will do that. And it's the same here. If you're going to buy a 3D printing machine because it's going to enable you to make something that you couldn't make before, or you can make it cheaper now, or you can make it faster now, or whatever, my advice to those people is you sit down and you figure out what is it you're trying to achieve. And that becomes your measure. You measure against so success means I achieved what I wanted to achieve. And it's not measured in rands or dollars or euros. It's measured in, yes, I did cut my production time, or yes, I did reduce the cost of my product, or yes, I enabled the opening up of an entire new market for my business. And yes, I could stop selling pumps to the mines and maybe make some intelligent pumps, like the pumps that AEL use that pump explosives. Now that's interesting pumps to me, not pumps that pump water. So, of course, enabling technology has a return on investment. It's just not necessarily measured in rands and cents. So when should we implement it? Oh no, okay. No. We're going to wait. We're going to wait and see and make sure this all works first. Then we'll invest. Now, of course, everyone knows this curve. Everyone's seen this curve before. Where's the money for businesses? It actually can probably be anywhere up to here. Those people, they've missed the bus. They're not going to make money. The late majority might, depending on their business model. The innovators, and I've certainly heard a lot about innovation in this room. There's innovators in this room. They're going to lose some money. Here's where you're looking for funding and doing experiments and not necessarily making money, but you've got the view that when this happens, that's when we're going to make the money. So the answer is, enabling technology does make money. When to get in depends on your corporate culture for a business, and sometimes how deep your pockets are. But normally, those that get in early and do it right make money. But I keep coming back to do it right, because we still hear the stories, oh, we tried that and it failed. It did not work. So a lot of the other negative people then, and there's a lot of negative people as well, say, well, why should we bother? Why don't we just carry on doing it the way we're doing it now? I'm going to go through this very quickly. I'm not going to bore you with it. Why should we bother? because we want to create a competitive advantage. And I'm talking to businesses now. Because we want to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. We want to improve our reputation. We want to improve customer response times. We want to increase our revenues. We want to increase proficiency and productivity in our production environments. We want to increase our quality. We want to increase innovation. We want to decrease costs, increase profitability, reduce time to market, add additional capabilities and capacity. Now we're getting to the bottom of the list. We actually want to catch up to our competitors who've left us behind. And the last point is, for some people, actually, if you don't do this, you don't get to stay in business. So this list tends to go from the highest aspiration through to, well, do it because otherwise you're gone. But there's very good reasons for investing in enabling technology. Now, I quickly added this slide last night, as you would have gathered, because it's a quote from Peter Geldenhuys's presentation yesterday. And the thing, I love what he said, the issue is not what technology we use, but the business models that we need to develop to employ that technology. The rest of my presentation actually is about this topic, but he just said it so succinctly. I just like that sentence. Where the rest of my presentation goes, and yesterday was an example, and I actually find this in the marketplace. So forgive me if this sounds perhaps a little critical, but often this is the only topic of discussion, is the technology. And in the business world, that's in your world, in your world where you're developing this equipment or the supplies for this equipment, or you're in academia and such like, it is about the technology. In the business world, just buying the technology and making sure there's a space for it somewhere and plonking it down with a forklift means nothing. It's about people, and it's about processes, and it's about a strategy, which, i.e., the business model, that what are we going to do with this technology, and how are we going to use it? So the first thing that I believe we need is what I call active leadership. Enabling technology will never work if the senior leadership in an organization thinks that all they have to do is get board approval and the check is signed. And then the rest of the organization, go do it. That's the first recipe for failure. Because if that leader who does that is the same leader who's going to turn around in 2 years' time and say, oh yeah, we invested 10 million rand in doing this and it never worked, it was a complete failure. Because if the people in the organization see that the leader doesn't care, or leadership doesn't care and doesn't do anything, it's obviously not important, right? So we're not going to do anything. So what do we have to do? Well, I think that the great place to start is to begin at the beginning, go on till you come to the end, and then stop. That's the process. Or at least that's what the king told Alice was the process. It's a little more complicated in the real world. We need an implementation plan. If we're going to invest in enabling technology of whatever kind, we need a plan and we need to implement it. We don't just drag it in, dump it, and expect it to work. Whether it's a computer system that applies across the whole country, or whether, it could be country, whole company is what I meant to say, or it's in the factory, on the factory floor, wherever, it needs to be implemented, and that involves the technology itself, but also people and processes around that. So, this is my analysis of the mistakes people. I started out by saying I've spent many years studying where people go wrong. My answer to that is they go wrong by not doing this. So this is effectively what I wrote the little book around. This is the process to ensure that enabling technology is successful. And let's go through it. Start with, why am I doing this? What are the objectives? If I don't know that, like anything else, it can go anywhere. Undertake a business process analysis, in other words, my current business, how it's working, who's doing what. Develop a business case around why I want to invest in this technology. Because it's that business case that I need to present to the people who are going to pay. And it needs to be tangible. But I'm not, as I said before, I'm not saying you can promise X return on investment. Choose the technology, because maybe there's some choices, and that could be a big process. That could be, we're investigating a whole range of different machines or equipment or technologies or types of technologies. And then choose a partner. Never, 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 never think we can do this ourselves. That's the biggest point of failure. I see this every day, and it's not because we're in the business of helping companies implement enabling technologies, but we're in the business because this is where people go wrong. I mentioned that VCAD system that we've implemented here at VUT. So many companies, it's a case of, oh no, well, yeah, we'll buy that stuff from you, and our IT guy can implement it. No, he can't. The IT guy's spent his life just plugging in PCs and screens. He knows nothing about implementing systems like that, or why, or how, and stuff. So go into partnership with somebody who knows how to do this. And I'm sure this applies in the world of 3D printing. I don't know it intimately, but I'm quite sure it's not a case of, if a manufacturer wanted to go into this business, that they're just going to buy the machine, plug it in, press the button, go. No. I know that's not going to happen. Run an alignment and planning workshop. Get everybody in the organization involved and work with them, explain to them, why are we doing this? Why are we changing the way we're doing business? Get everybody's buy-in. Let everyone understand what their role is in making this successful. Then you put in an actual plan, and the plan involves things like training and all the steps that have to happen to make it go. Then execute the plan. So if here's a huge point of failure, here's the second one. We have a wonderful plan, but we didn't execute it. It was a wonderful plan. Just stayed on a piece of paper and never got implemented. Then, in some cases, drive adoption. In many cases, that's quite a challenge. Probably not so much in 3D printing. In the world of sales that I'm quite familiar with, implement a CRM system where you're keeping track of your customers and customer records, and you have a company that has 50 salespeople across South Africa. Getting them to use that system, that's a big deal. It's a serious big deal. And if they don't use it, it's going to fail. Get all this right, you then realize the promise of that technology. Every enabling technology comes with a promise. It will do this. It's going to do wonderful things for you. But you have to work at realizing that promise. And of course, it doesn't just end. So unlike what the king said to Alice, it's not a case of then just stop. Actually, then measure, improve, continue, and start again. And this becomes cyclical. So that's the process. Some of the other, just to expand a bit on some of the things that go wrong. This diagram that came out from the Blanchard Leader Chat blog, which was some research done by Dr. Roux, whom I don't know personally, but I do know that those figures make sense to me, so I believe them just by even by looking at them. That if you look at plans and execution, of all the plans and all the execution out there in the business world, only 4% actually are good plans, well executed. Thank you. And that 74% may well be a good plan and just not executed. What does this need? Back to active leadership. This happens when the leaders leave it up to everyone else and think they can walk away from it. So it's about execution, execution, execution. Couple of suggestions. If anyone's interested in how you make this happen, there's 2 excellent books out there on the marketplace. One is The 4 Disciplines of Execution, and the other one is Our Iceberg is Melting by John Cotter, which is about change management and getting people to change and how you get an organization to change and do things differently. Excellent books, highly recommended. It still takes active leadership to make this happen. And it comes back to adoption. Actually doing it, making it happen, making sure that you get the results that you started with, because only then that's how you measure, was this thing successful, and it's about leadership. So I think you probably get the message that I think quite strongly that success or failure with any of these ventures is about leadership. So in my belief, success or failure is a choice, that the return on investment will be realized if the expected business outcomes are realized, and that the answer to ensuring that success lies in following the proven process, which I went through, and this ultimately leads to the realization of the business outcomes and success. So thank you very much. That's my presentation.